Good morning. My name is Deborah DeMeis, and Dean of Students. It is really a pleasure to welcome you to this morning's breakfast. I always feel a little hesitant to interrupt a room when there's so much good conversation and so many smiles in a room, but I know you've come for a different reason as well, and I want to be sure that we have time for the President and her remarks. I want to take just a moment to say to all of you how much it means to us that you have joined us here today at the college and that you have a chance to see the place that your daughter spends her days and what she does with her time here. We know that many of you have traveled a long distance to join us, and we are especially grateful for you to take time out of your own busy lives. Just out of curiosity, how many of you arrived yesterday? Most of you, great. We were just talking at my table about the New England weather. So what I would say to you is when you log on and you're seeing what's going on in your daughter's lives and it's February and you wonder why anyone would want to ever live in Boston, just remember it is this kind of quintessential, it is just the perfect New England day. And so we just really hope that you appreciate and enjoy this wonderful day here. We are joined this morning by a number of staff in the room, and so just as a way of introduction and beginning today, I'd like to introduce the staff. They will stay around a little bit at the end of the period, so if there's anyone that you would like to ask a question of, we will ask them to stay for just a moment. So I'm going to start over here. Kelly, could you just start, and then we'll just sweep across the room for the staff. Ben, I think you may be next.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ben Hammond, and I'm the Vice President for Finance and Administration here at Wellesley.
Lily?
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy St. John, and I'm the Director of Admissions. Good morning. I'm Leslie Ruhlman. I'm the Assistant Director of Wellesley College.
So you, oh, Bridget, you're over there.
Good morning, Director of Athletics and Chair of our Physical Education and Recreation.
So you can see a number of people have joined us this morning, and you can see the community that supports your daughters while they are here. And now to my main responsibility. It is my pleasure to introduce the president of Wellesley College. As many of you know, Doctor, and I keep now going to different because I moved. I know it's true though, she is. I moved between these titles. She could be doctor, she could be president. President and Doctor Kim Bottomley is really a renowned immunobiologist who really has a worldwide reputation. And that serves us so well at the institution, not just because of the public reputation she has, but it says so much about her commitment to being someone who teaches knowledge. But more importantly, and as a role model for the students at this institution, she is a creator of knowledge. And that is a very different role. And I think that kind of role model is exactly what we hope will happen for the women of Wellesley College. She also has a long history. She came to us from Yale. She has a long history of being a supporter of women's education. And I think just by the very act of what she has already done, she exemplifies the importance of women's leadership. But beyond that, she's been an enormous supporter of women and training them to take on leadership roles in her own profession and also in higher education. She's now, as you can imagine, a staunch supporter of Wellesley. And as you know, superstition has it that 13 is an unlucky number. At Wellesley, we think 13 is a really lucky number. It brought us Kim Bottomley. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. If my voice fades, just wave at me from somewhere in the room and I'll speak up. So I'm really delighted to be here with you this morning. I want to thank you for coming, and you're such an incredibly large group. It's great. And I should say welcome to you who are here for maybe the first time, and welcome back to those of you who are here year after year. I see some of you were here just a few weeks ago, moving your daughters in, and I think that's very nice that you're back to sort of check in and have a chance to chat with your daughter. I hope you'll get a sense of our community, and just we want to give you a flavor of what your daughter experiences while she's here. We hope that today you'll be able to do that, and also to be able to cheer on our athletes as they play their homecoming game. But the main reason, of course, you're here is just to spend a little time with your daughter. It's not going to be time on the iPhone or texting or any of the other ways you may interact with your daughter, but there's nothing like that face-to-face interaction. Now, you may already know a lot of facts about Wellesley College, but I'd like to just sort of give you a sense of what Wellesley is like when you're here all the time, and tell you a few things from maybe a perspective of a president that you might not hear from your daughters. So let me begin with just a couple of stories. I always like to talk about the students or the alums because they really are sort of the reflection of what a Wellesley education is all about. So recently I met a young alumna who'd graduated just a year ago. She majored in economics and Spanish at Wellesley. She's now studying the environmental and socioeconomic effects of coffee production in Mexico, and she's on a Fulbright scholarship. And she intends to pursue a PhD in environmental science. Here's another example. I ran into a young alumna in New York who was an international relations and Africana studies major on campus. And she's currently in a public policy master's degree program. She recently gave a TEDx talk. That's a talk sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates. And the talk was on investing in girls. I'm always impressed that when I meet these young alums, what they're doing and what they're aspiring to be in their lives. And these stories aren't unusual here. One reason for that is that Wellesley invests heavily in our intellectual community, in our living and learning environment, and invests in the educational experience for women. We want all of our students to develop into the best versions of themselves and to emerge as broadly educated and as intellectually sophisticated citizens. That's really what our goal is. So how do we do this? Well, Wellesley doesn't do it all. It's a partnership. It's a partnership between our students and the institution. And we start from the very first day that students step on campus, and really before she steps on campus. For example, over the summer this year, each first-year student was sent a common book, and some of you parents here and some of you students will know that this year's book is called Being Wrong. It's a book by Catherine Schultz, which talks about the important learning opportunities that occur when we recognize that in certain situations, maybe in many situations, we actually are wrong. This book has important themes and lessons as students begin their first semester of college. And it's nice because the first-year students come together having done something together. They've read this book. The first-year students then meet in small groups with upper-class students who themselves have been trained to be group leaders. They discuss the book, and they discuss the relevant themes that the book alludes to. Additionally, the author will soon visit Wellesley to visit 2 classes and also to give a public lecture on the importance of wrongness. And I would just like to say that this is such a great way to introduce our newest students to our community because we are a distinct community and we want students to understand what's the difference between their high school and Wellesley College. And in this way, we can have them start thinking about some of the themes and values at Wellesley College. The other thing I like about this is that at the same time we're introducing our first-year students to campus, We are also developing the leadership potential of the upper class students as they lead these groups. They're not just thrown into it, they actually go through a training period themselves to help facilitate conversations among the first-year students. So I just want to say that this is organized by the first-year dean's office, and I think this is a wonderful, relatively new program. At Wellesley, we do things very well in terms of education. We teach the basics well. We do it really pretty much in the traditional or classic manner. We've been very successful at this for decades. But that doesn't mean that we have shied away from innovation and from being responsive to the changing state of knowledge and to innovative approaches in teaching and learning. And we've remained, and I like to say we've remained true to the old, which has served us so well and which the students love, but we also embrace the new. We also continue to offer distinctive opportunities for our students that are really outside the classroom. These opportunities allow our students to employ their classroom experiences. They've learned a lot of things in the classroom, but really to employ these experiences, this knowledge in different settings, really creating an environment where students have to think differently, to make connections between disciplines, to have creative solutions for problems or for problem solving. We've always provided these kinds of experiences, and we have some new ones that we are offering in the more recent past. So for example, the opportunity to study abroad. 50% of our juniors participate in study abroad. In many ways, this is such a wonderful thing. In some ways, it's kind of hard to lose 50% of your student body out of the junior class as they're all abroad. I like it because, for instance, I'm going to London tomorrow, and while I'm there, we will have a variety of meetings, and those students who are close by will come and be part of those meetings, so I get to see them when I'm abroad as well. The students also have the opportunity to have internships. Over 80% of last year's senior class participated in internships in the United States and abroad. Service, opportunities to do service. More than 2/3 of last year's seniors participated in community service projects while they were at Wellesley. In fact, last year, Wellesley funded 175 summer internships or community service opportunities in 30 countries around the world. Last year, 300 students participated in research or independent study. Now, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that having done all of that, the students have the opportunity to share their internship, their study abroad, their research experiences with the entire Wellesley College campus community. Because we have 2 conferences a year which are really very distinctive at Wellesley, where the students can give presentations and talk about their experiences in these various different activities. One of the conferences we call the Tanner Conference. It's held in the fall. It will be in November. And that's a conference that's primarily for students to come back and talk about their study abroad experiences. It demonstrates the importance of the relationship between a liberal arts education and the student's role in an increasingly diverse and complicated world. At the same time, it helps the students, this conference, really process their experience. Rather than going away and having these great experiences and coming back and then it's kind of all over, they have a chance to talk about it, what it means. One student said, participating in the Tanner Conference put my entire internship into perspective and made me realize the progress I had made over one summer. Sometimes when you don't look back on something you've been doing, you forget how much you've learned or developed during that period of time. The second conference is in the spring, called the Ruhlman Conference. We call it sort of an intellectual festival. Some people call it a one-day campus brain party. Ruhlman is a celebration of student achievements through research. Research could be in the humanities, the social sciences, the arts, the sciences. It's also a celebration of the important collaboration that happens between the students and the faculty. These are all fabulous Wellesley programs. They were really pretty much invented by Wellesley, and they're greatly admired by peer institutions. Occasionally, peer institutions send their deans or various administrators to come and try to figure out how we do it. They take this knowledge back, and some schools have been able to set up these successful programs, and some have not been able to, but we do it well. I like to say that Wellesley is a place in which students and professors can interact in a dynamic give and take on a regular basis. This can't be reproduced in a large classroom. It can't be reproduced electronically. Can't be reproduced at an institution where teaching isn't the primary focus. It can only be produced where there's outstanding teaching, and that's the norm and that's what's expected. And I'm very proud of the fact that this has been the tradition at Wellesley since its beginning in 1875. So let me talk a little bit about some of the things that we've started at Wellesley that really represent sort of more innovation in learning and teaching. Things that the faculty have done. Really a focus on the first year. Those of you who are new to the school won't know what it was like before, but the faculty really initiated a program which allowed us to add to what was already a pretty interesting first year for students. We think that it's important to signal a change from high school to college. We want the students to be able to understand the values and aspirations of an intellectual community. So the faculty started a program of small, discussion-based, collaborative seminars. Small, only a few students are allowed in, there's a cap. And it allows students to study topics that really talk about real-world problems in a small environment with other first-year students. It's an opportunity to bond, it's an opportunity to kind of use their intellect in a different kind of way, and it marks the beginning of college. And we like to think of the fact that what we do at Wellesley is instill a love of learning. This was added to this was a brand new public speaking program. And this was added to our already very successful writing program. So you can think about it. This makes me want to go back to college, actually. Students come, they learn to write, they learn to speak, they learn to use their brains in different ways, and it's a great way for first-year students to really be introduced to Wellesley. The faculty also, just last year, started something called team teaching. Now, at a university, team teaching isn't so unusual. It's really a way of being able to give a class where you don't have to give as many of the lectures. But in this case, team teaching allows us to cover topics that might not neatly fit into a department or a major without having to add an extra faculty member or add an extra program to do it. So for example, last year we had an economics professor and a philosophy professor join forces to teach a course on inequality. The causes, the consequences, and the meaning. I think it's a pretty good time to start talking about inequality and for students to think about what that means. Another course takes a sort of a global approach to team teaching and puts together, it's a political science course, and part of the class is in Pakistan, and part of the class is at Wellesley College. And thanks to video conferencing, the two groups can learn about and discuss the politics of human development in Pakistan. So a really nice way to hear about a very important country in the world and to understand its history and its political aspirations. You also may have heard that we just launched this past week our first online course as part of what we call Wellesley X. Last year, we joined MIT and Harvard in a brand new online platform called edX. Every school that joins has a name, and we're called Wellesley X. We are going to put up 4 courses. The first one just started, and it's called The Introduction to Human Evolution, and the class has 19,000 students. I'd like to say this is one brave professor. His name is Adam Van Arsdale. He's a terrific professor, and he's teaching this course alongside of the regular course he teaches on human evolution, and he's allowing the students to have some opportunities to see how online education works and to give him some feedback on how he's doing and to really kind of learn a little bit about this. We're really thrilled with this. We think it's very brave of him. And he has a blog, actually, so if you're interested in following what it feels like to be a professor teaching 19,000 students, you can go online and see that. He's created some very exciting things for this course, and we think it's a wonderful way for Wellesley to reach out across the world and provide access to a Wellesley education to people who really don't have any way to attend college or don't have the time or effort or ability to attend college. We also recognize that Wellesley X is really, the real reason for it is it's an experiment for us to sort of try out what it feels like for professors to teach online and to take some of the kind of methodology that provides us to see whether it could be used in a Wellesley College classroom. I would say that online education is not going to replace the intimate classroom experience that's the hallmark of a Wellesley education. But there may be ways of taking some of the interesting ideas from that and using it advantageously for our students. We've also expanded our global initiatives. 5 years ago, we offered up a brand new program called the Albright Institute, named after our famous alum, Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State. And it served as a new model for liberal arts education as it brings an interdisciplinary approach to addressing global problems. It was so successful for these 5 years that we used this institute as the educational model for an intensive 10-day academic program that we jointly hosted with Peking University this past summer, and we did this in Beijing. So what did that mean? That meant 40 women students, half of them from Peking University and half of them from Wellesley College, came together in Beijing, in China, to learn about and to begin to address the challenges of an urban future. Very exciting for these students, but very hard work for these students as well. This program is really based on teamwork and being able to really come together with practitioners in the field and faculty members, and I think it was very exciting for the students. This academic program ended with a day-long conference on women's leadership, bringing together really the top women leaders from China and India and the area, along with some of our own alums who are pretty significant leaders as well, talking about women's leadership. And the students attended that. In fact, they gave their presentation of what it was like to work in a classroom cross-culturally. I believe, and we believe at Wellesley, that it's time to educate, or to continue to educate, the new generation of global leaders, and that the world needs more women leaders. And no one is better positioned to do this than Wellesley College. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the sciences and research and some of the things we do. I'm an immunobiologist by training. And so it may not surprise you that I think a lot about how science education is tackling the global problems or even the national problems today. And I'm very interested in understanding what it takes to get a student interested in science. We know that women and men who go to liberal arts colleges really do well if they major in science. In fact, they do better, if you measure how many go on to get PhDs or go to medical school, than most universities at educating science majors. And the reason is that they interact directly. Those students can interact directly with professors. And at Wellesley, we're very, very proud of this, and not just for the sciences, but also for the social sciences as well. We offer summer science and social science research programs and we provide funding for students to be able to do this, where students can stay on campus, they can actually work in the area science labs as well, and they can work as part of a collaborative team. They can do original research. It's this sort of thing that really attracts students to various kind of disciplines, whether it be the sciences or the social sciences. Some of the students showed posters at the end of last summer on how nanoparticles can be used to treat pancreatic cancer. This summer, the economics faculty and students looked at how people, both in the United States and in developing countries, make financial decisions and how they make decisions concerning their children's health and education. A team of psychology students and a faculty-led research project looked at how bilingualism shapes children's cognitive development. So it's all very exciting, and it's a great way to take the knowledge that students learn in class and have them actually work on how you generate new knowledge. And I think there's nothing more empowering than that. And then, of course, this goes on in the humanities as well. There are many, many different and interesting projects in the humanities, work and research with humanities professor, creative writing projects where people are writing poems, short essays, small novels. And in the humanities, and really one of the areas where we're growing, is the languages. I'm delighted to tell you we've just added our 15th language, which is Portuguese, to our curriculum. In fact, Wellesley offers more languages than any other liberal arts college in the country. And this is deliberate because we believe that people are going to have to go out in this world and be global citizens. And if you can't speak the language, it's much more complicated to do that. Many students do this by doing what we call a double major. So they might major in neuroscience, and they might also major in French. They might major in English and major in German. So there's many ways that students really are able to incorporate languages into their curriculum. At Wellesley, there's another way in which our students learn and grow, and it's equally important to everything else, and that is by living in our residential community and contributing to that community. You know, as people are thinking about online education and how it's going to be the new world of education around us, I think what we need to say is that coming to college for 4 years and living in a residential community teaches students a lot you will miss if all you're doing is getting your information from online education. Living in a residential community emphasizes the need for mutual respect and understanding. It's an effort that, it is an effort. You know, living in a residence hall is an effort that leads to gains in interpersonal intelligence and awareness of the people around them. It develops life skills. It enhances a student's recognition of the complexity of social communities. Students learn to respect the delicate bonds of community life, and they learn how to restore those bonds when they are frayed. They make lifelong friendships. These are all a very important part of their Wellesley education. So I'll end by saying at Wellesley, education is really directed at understanding complexity, thinking critically, and communicating clearly. It is also directed at listening, hearing, and understanding the viewpoints of others. A Wellesley education leads to wise, analytical, creative, and sophisticated citizens. It is this education that explains why Wellesley alumni go out and make a difference in the world, however they want to do it. Your daughters came to Wellesley as very smart young women. They leave even more. They have become connected in ways that will stay with them forever. We know that like all Wellesley alumni, your daughters will be in that group of people who take the lead in many ways to make the world a better place for everyone. Thank you for being here this weekend. Thank you for continuing to recognize the value and the relevance of liberal arts education. And thank you for your support of Wellesley College. And thank you for being a part of our community. Thanks. So now is my favorite part, which I actually would, I could give you a 2-minute speech and have all the rest of it be questions and answers, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. If I can't answer it, we have a lot of experts around the world, around the room who can. Yes.
President Bottomley, all the remarks that you made are warm the cockles of my heart as a parent for all the things that it can do for our daughter, intellectually and from the standpoint of leadership skills and so forth. I have a question for you, whether Wellesley as an institution has a purpose-driven sort of goal of working on the spirituality of the students. And I don't mean this in the religious sense necessarily. I mean in the human spirit. How does the college approach the question of how we develop leaders who are driven by noble motives, shall we say? Is it assumed that they've arrived here that way, or that they will self-organize within the community, or is there something that Wellesley is pursuing as a value for developing leaders who have substantive humanity in them? Thank you.
That's a wonderful question, and I'm going to ask others to help answer that. But I would start with saying that I just gave a convocation address. And as part of my convocation address, welcoming the students to campus, I talked about a little bit about Wellesley's history and what our founder, Henry Durant, thought when he was starting this college. And remember, he started this college as kind of an improbable thing at a time when women really weren't expected to be educated, and in fact, when there was resistance to educating women, when he and several others of the other presidents of the women's colleges wanted to really say that women should be a force in the world. He said that one of the purposes, one of the values of Wellesley College was to have noble usefulness, and really meant that women needed to go out and really create the value system and the way of leading that would really be important for the world to understand. And he told the students, you're going to have to fight for this because nobody believes that any of you really are capable of being educated. It was so bad that people thought that women might die or become, infertile or whatever if they expanded their intellectual brain power. So the history of the college is quite interesting. We actually have really embraced that, and particularly more recently in the last decade or so, we set up an office, really previous presidents, of spiritual and religious life to really start kind of developing our ideas about what it means to really want to go out in the world and have those values and those moral charges that are so important, I think, that have been lost a bit in the world today. And so I think we're really well positioned. We have wonderful people working on that. We had a leader who is about to leave, or maybe has left, right? Who has been recognized as one of the leaders in this area, Dean Victor Kazanjian. He was just hired away to take a kind of a higher calling, if you will, and we were very privileged to have him for so many years. But I might call on Kelly to just make a few comments about that, she's the interim director now. It's something we're very proud of, so I'm very happy you asked the question.
Yep. Thank you, President Bottomley. So just to add to your comments, too, one of the things that our office has been doing for nearly 2 decades in religious and spiritual life is to help our students think about how we can be transformed through our relationships with each other. So some of our programs, we talk about moving beyond tolerance and stepping beyond kind of just tolerating each other and moving into a space where we deeply understand each other and learn from one another and the depth of the experiences that we bring. So one of the hallmark experiences that your daughters might have buzzed a little bit about is Flower Sunday, and that's really a celebration of sisterhood and siblinghood here in this place, where we lift up the relationships and the transformative power of the relationships shared amongst the students here in the Wellesley community. And that's one of the hallmark moments for the community, and they'll be bookended by a baccalaureate celebration that's of a similar flavor as your daughters graduate and leave this place.
Great. Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're going to give Heather a workout. The other thing that I would say, and I hope your daughters have also felt this, one thing that's a tradition at Wellesley, and has been a tradition for many, many years, is our honor code. And nearly every one of our students can repeat that honor code. We ask students really to be responsible for themselves and to be responsible for this community. So it isn't just about, I agree to live honorably. It is also, I ask those around me to live honorably, and I hold them to that standard. And I think that is, it's a very powerful way. It is the day-to-day, and for those of you who are first-year parents, you know, I shared with you that students leave their laptops just around the campus and expect that they will be there when they return. That is a tremendous sense of, it's a really high standard for how we expect to live in community here. And I think it's a wonderful way to begin to teach our students not only how to lead, I think, from positions of power, but just how to be a member of a community and to set the standard of that community.
I really enjoyed your speech. Thank you so much. I'm wondering whether you are going to have small support group in the dormitory residential area so they can meet maybe once a month or twice a month and talk about their spirituality, their academic works, or future plans, or relationship, sexuality, drugs, whatever. So I think that kind of peer counseling kind of program is very important. And so that especially first-year students, they can be really attached to this small group, and that became lifelong friendship. So are you having that kind of program, or?
We think a lot about having small group programs where students can come together over a variety of common interests. And I might just ask Chris Neendorf, who runs our residential life program, to comment on some of them that we do. And we do them in various contexts. We do it in spiritual and religious life and in other contexts as well.
Many different areas of campus, and it is a partnership. I think that I work with all of my colleagues that are in this room, with your daughters, with the student leaders that work with us. So each RA, so a resident assistant on every floor on this campus, your daughters will have that. And they are required to do 2 programs every month. There are 70 RAs. So that's 140 programs every month. And that's only the RAs. Then we have first-year mentors who also have groups in the halls that will help guide them and answer questions. Every week in every residence hall, we have what we call teas. That's another very old tradition of the college. So not formal tea where we're having a high tea, but a tea where we invite people in to speak with us, or we develop those own questions. So some of them are current issue questions. I know we talked about what was going on in Kenya this week in one of the residence halls. We had a faculty member, actually Adam, who was teaching the class. He came in, but the faculty come in and say, this is what I do in my own personal life, and here's my 6-week-old son. He brought him along. You know, so it's a way for the students to get to know us as people, as well as educators. We do talk about the tough tops. So one of the things that I worked with Religious and Spiritual Life on last year was creating a program called Difficult Dialogues. So we push the buttons, we push them beyond the honor code. We talk about honesty, we talk about integrity, we talk about respect. Because those are the things that we ask our students to live when they all stand up and say, I agree to live this life of honor. And we take those very seriously. And then we can talk about things like the Emmy Awards, right? So we flip it and go that, and more about critiquing the costumes that were worn that night or the things that go on. But what are the politics behind some of those issues that are happening on our televisions and in our entertainment too? So it's a wide spectrum.
I would just point out that I mentioned it's a partnership between the institution and the students. Often students will come and say, we want to, we're upset about this, or we want to talk about that, or we want to have some way of getting together over a common area, and they will take the lead, and we will try to facilitate that, and we encourage the students to do that. Any other questions? Yes?
This is not a critical question, just a question of curiosity. been a lot of attention in the media lately about full-time versus part-time adjunct faculty, sometimes lowly paid and frustrated. Just wondering how you approach that here at Wellesley, and what is the ratio of full-time faculty versus part-time faculty?
Yeah, I think Wellesley is in a very, very different position and has been for a while, because there's a very great sense on our campus that all the faculty members who interact with students are valued members of our community, and that value has extended into all the kinds of things that are making adjuncts unhappy in other places, benefits, respect and pay and all of those sorts of things. A few years ago, we felt that the number of people we call our non-tenure track faculty were creeping up. And so before I even came to the campus, the Board of Trustees and the college sort of analyzed whether that was in the best interest of the students. Because if you have faculty on term appointments, as we call them, and they're not around, they're only here and then they leave and they come and they go, then they can't track students or become mentors to those students in the way we would like faculty members to be. So at that time, we undertook a major kind of change where we increased the number of faculty members on the tenure track, decreasing our use of these very temporary kind of adjunct-like faculty. And at the same time, we created a really wonderful way for our faculty on term appointments to really be welcomed and recognized and rewarded for their work in the community. So, you will talk to students on campus, and they will have favorite faculty who are faculty who have been not on the tenure track necessarily, but have been lecturers here for 20 years and who are some of our best teachers, and they want to dedicate themselves to teaching. They're not so interested in doing the research or other parts of the tenure track program. So I think we very much value our entire faculty. We understand they each bring different strengths. They all must be dedicated to teaching, and they also there must be some continuity for the students to feel that they are being able to see the same body of faculty over their 4 years, if not for, their years as alums as well, as they kind of interact with those faculties coming back. And we treat all faculty very well. So we feel like we're kind of different from the rest of the institutions around us.
I was pretty pleased to see how you jumped in on I guess it's a response to the rankings, the rankings of the schools, I guess it's U.S. News and World Report, and the pay scale, and I saw you jump in, and I said, wow, she's there, she's watching this stuff, so thanks. But I assume there's a lot more you have to say about this.
I do.
And I'm really...
Do you want me to start now?
And I'm curious, and I ask you to say more.
Yeah, I've been trying to contain myself. So, there's only so much you can say when they give you like 500 words to say it in the New York Times. But for those of you who don't know, there's a relatively new ranking agency called Pay Scale that has decided they're going to rank based on the income of graduates from the various colleges, and then compare them to one another with the idea that there are some colleges whose students graduate and make a lot of money, and some colleges who graduate students who make less money, and that somehow relates to the value of the education coming from that college. Now you can imagine this is just fraught with all kinds of of problems. I mean, if you're an engineering school, well, of course you're going to be at the top of the list because everybody is an engineer and they make a lot of money. So I think that there's a bigger issue here about that, which is rankings in general. The way all the rankings go are really based on things that we don't necessarily always value at a college. We don't want to have to be readjusting what we do just to increase our rankings. If we all paid our professors more, our rankings would go up. But then the colleges would all go broke and we'd have to raise tuition as well. So that doesn't make any sense. Rankings are based on things like how many of your alums participate in annual giving. We actually have almost 50% of our alums participating in annual giving, which is a great number, but so do all of our peers as well. So that's a kind of a nebulous way to think about, that they're giving us money as a way to rank a college. And a variety of other things, some of which are good and some of which aren't. So we try to do what we need to do to be good in the rankings of the things that we feel the college wants to do. We want to retain our students. We want to graduate everyone. We want to provide the resources that are necessary for individual students to succeed. We think these are all good things. The pay scale is particularly problematic. The others we don't like so much, but we could live with. But the pay scale is particularly problematic, and it's problematic for a variety of reasons. One, and most importantly, it says that the value of your education, what you do in your life, is going to be measured. Your success as students will, and the college's success at that, will be measured by how much money you make. I fundamentally think that's just a horrible way to look at a person's value to society. Annoying thing about this ranking was that they only really look at students who graduate and what they make, not taking into consideration that 80% of our students go on to graduate or professional school. Those 80% don't count. So only the few who graduate and happen to be doing something else and maybe then will go on to graduate school, it's their pay that they're looking at. So they're devaluing 80% of our students because that just doesn't count. And for any of the good schools, this is going to be the case. So that was the point I made in my New York Times response to the editorial, that this was just completely flawed as a way of looking at things. And we're hoping that more people will take that view. But the more of you that join this battle of the rankings, the better. Maybe we have time for one more question? Burning questions out there? No? Well then, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day.